New evidence that Iranian troops are now on the ground in Ukraine, training Russia's military to use their deadly drones. The Biden administration says the goal of the training is to use the drones with better lethality after recent strikes in Kyiv and elsewhere 8 months into the war. Just moments ago, I spoke to one of the top officials within the Biden White House about that. Take a listen. Joining me now is the top national security spokesman for the White House, John Kirby. John, I appreciate your being with us. I want to drill down on some of this as it relates to Iran and Ukraine. How many Iranians does the U.S. assess are in Ukraine? Is it technical support or training, and is it anything beyond training?
Right now, we assess that this is technical support and training. It's a relatively small number. I think I'm going to leave it at that. Just a relatively small number of Iranians that are on the ground. They're in Crimea. And we think that part of the reason they're there is because the initial shipment of these drones led to some operator and equipment errors that the Russians were having trouble with in terms of using them and being able to operate them, having some system failures. And so the Iranians went ahead and flew in some of these tech support and trainers. But this is the clear evidence that Iran is right now on the ground, involved, engaged in the war in Ukraine.
John, let me follow up then as it relates to Iran. Does the U.S. have any evidence that Iran is planning to or has already provided missiles to Russia?
What we've seen is support along the line of UAVs, and that's what we're seeing now. Those are
the armed drones, the unmanned drones.
Unmanned drones, yes. That's. I'm sorry, I should have made that clear, but that's what we've seen. That's the support that we're talking about right now.
And so, just for clarity, there's no indication at this time of any missiles. Do you believe that they are preparing to do that? Is there any concern that's in the offing?
Yeah, Peter, we've seen some of the press reporting around the possibility of ballistic missiles being involved in here. We don't have any indication that has come to pass. Iran does have a burgeoning and improving ballistic missile capability, which is worrisome in the region all by itself. And again, we'll watch and see where this goes. I would just say that we have held Iran accountable for these arms sales of the drones to Russia through sanctions, both in terms of their defense industrial base as well as individuals. And we are not going to take off the table additional measures of accountability, particularly in the sanctions regime, as they continue to support Russia's efforts in Ukraine.
And John, we've been watching along with you and everybody across the world, frankly, as Russia's just continued this bombardment, now destroying so much of the energy infrastructure there in Ukraine. How is the U.S. helping Ukraine prepare for these cold weather months as that continues to happen? Is there anything you can do to further defend the surviving infrastructure?
We are working hard with allies and partners to see what we can do on the energy front to support Ukraine. They have been weathering this pretty well so far and trying to get their power back online. The majority of the country does have power, but certainly this is a concern, and we're working closely with President Zelensky and his team to see what would be needed going forward as we get into what is likely to be a very cold winter here for much of Ukraine. We're also doing what we can to help the Ukrainian armed forces get ready for the winter months. And just out of the Brussels meeting that Secretary Austin held, additional donations of winter weather gear for the Ukrainian army, that came through. So we're doing what we can for them as well.
John, we've been keeping a close eye, obviously, to the reporting about the former President Trump having documents that include classified papers containing U.S. secrets. The Washington Post now reporting that those secrets also noted Iran and that they were about Iran and China specifically. The Post says that's according to people familiar with the matter. Are you aware of the administration doing anything right now to try to protect sources and methods as it relates to this information that could be compromised vis-a-vis China, Iran, and beyond?
I'm not going to talk about an ongoing investigation here or work that the intelligence community is doing to take a look at these documents. I think
what's the potential risk to the U.S., I guess?
I would just say that in general, in every case, all around the world and on every day, we believe it's important to safeguard classified and confidential information and to make sure that we are doing what we can to continue to be able to access, collect, analyze information from around the world for our own intelligence purposes. The protection of sources and methods is always a concern for the United States of America, and it will be going forward. But again, I don't want to talk about this particular case and those particular documents.
I understand. Let me ask you, as long as we were talking about China, let me stay in that region, ask you about North Korea right now. Are there any signs that the North Koreans are planning a nuclear test in the near future?
We have said, and have been saying it for months, Peter, that another nuclear test could happen at any time. Now, again, I'm not going to get into intelligence assessments, but we're watching this as closely as we can. Obviously,
of course, Sean, the reason this is notable now is because the Chinese are soon going to be wrapping up their Communist Party Congress, right? So there's some sense that after that, perhaps North Korea may be motivated to do something.
I don't know what exactly will motivate Kim Jong-un one way or the other, and I think we need to be a little bit careful ascribing it to dates on the calendar. We've said, again, that another nuclear test could occur at any time. We've been very honest about that. We're watching it as closely as we can. Of course, we've all been seeing these additional missile launches that the North has been conducting in the last few weeks. All of that is of concern to us because it's just going to destabilize the region and the peninsula even more. And that's why, Peter, we have increased our own intelligence collection efforts around the Korean Peninsula. That's why we're doing these additional bilateral and sometimes trilateral exercises with our Japanese and South Korean counterparts to make sure that militarily speaking, if we need to be, we're going to be ready to go.
Yeah, John Kirby is the top national security spokesperson for the White House. John, I appreciate you making time. Thank you.
Yes, sir.